Hello everyone, welcome to this Blender tutorial. Today I want to show you how to create muzzle flashes in Blender. I'm just going to show you how to do the muzzle flashes and the compositing, but you can always improve those muzzle flashes by adding smoke simulation or stock footage of smoke on top of that. I haven't done that here, but just so you know, you can do that. Okay, let's head into Blender. First of all, I'm working in the Blender internal render engine, and my resolution will be 720 by 480 and 23.98 frames per second. To create the muzzle flash, I use a UV sphere as a base. I enter edit mode and with everything selected, rotate around the x-axis by 90 degrees. Sorry, the y-axis. So that this single vertex here, that's so to speak on top of the sphere, will be facing to the left side. Then I select that one, activate proportional editing, and now if I press G to move along the x-axis, I can shape this into something that is kind of like a teardrop or a drop of water. And that will be the basis for our muzzle flash. With the selected in edit mode, I press A to select everything, and then I subdivide one time because I want more vertices in order to displace it, to give it a more random shape. How do we displace it? Well, we add a material that I will just call Muzzle, and on that material we add a texture. We can leave the cloud texture, but we don't want to show it up on the actual object, so we deactivate it. We will just use this texture under modifiers, add a displace modifier, select the texture we have just created, and now we see that this object is a bit more random and looks kind of... It's getting there. It will be... We can improve this by, with everything selected, going to vertex paint mode. And I've forgotten one thing. Under the object data, add a vertex group. Just add it. And now in vertex paint mode, first of all, I want to change the mode to add and the strength to 0.3. Not vertex paint, weight paint. Sorry about that. So we have everything blue right here. And if I go back to the modifier, if I use that vertex group we just created as the influence for our displacement, we will see that it isn't displaced any little bit as long as it's blue, and the displacement starts where it gets green and gets more. The more the color changes to red, the more the displacement will have an effect. And by doing this, we can make sure that the front of the object doesn't get very much distortion or displacement, but the center gets a lot. And I've used add mode so I can paint it over and gradually build it up to get more and more red as I go along. And if I increase the strength and change the mid-level, I can have an influence on the shape. And if I've painted somewhere where I didn't really want to, I can erase that by changing the mode from add to subtract and undo what I've done. That looks kind of okay to me, so I will leave the weight paint mode and leave it like that. I want a black background, and of course when I render this now I don't see anything because I don't have any material. The muzzle material, we are going to need a volume setting, and let me bring this up here. We want it to emit light, let's say 2, and it should be a bit more orange. Now you can see we sort of have this random shape that is a bit like a muzzle flash, but it's really, if you see here, it gets really like little dots in there. And if you want to get rid of those little dots at the edge of it all, you can go to the integration and decrease the step size. And then when you render it again, the lower the step size, the better it will be, and the less it will look like little black dots on the edge of the muzzle flash. A little trick that I like to use is this. I add a empty plane axis that I'm just going to call control, and move that up here, and with the muzzle flash selected, the texture coordinates, change it to object and then to control. And now if I want to get a different shape for the muzzle flash, the flash will look different depending on where I move this empty. So when I set an animation like, let's say, location on the first frame, and I know my animation will be about 20 frames long, that's the video I'm going to import later on frame 20, I move this up and another location, I will get a differently looking muzzle flash on every frame. Okay, time to get the video. I press N to bring up the panel right here, activate background images, add an image to camera view, movie clip, deactivate camera clip, and I open this clip right here. And why don't I see that right now? That's strange. Add image. That's strange. Why does it show up as an image file but not when I set it to movie clip? I don't know. Anyway, let's continue. Let me check when the movie ends, and it seems like it's only really about 17 frames or so long, so I put the ending there. And then I look for the frame where the guy actually shoots the gun. I'd say this frame 6. And by the way, this background footage, I got it from Video Copilot. I will link to that in the description of the video. And now I just move the muzzle flash in place and scale it so it's about the right size. Now on to compositing. I open the node editor, use backdrop, input movie clip, choose the blowback movie clip that we had. I will distort and scale it to the render size just to make sure. And now if we want to have this muzzle flash on top of the video, we just not multiply, add it over there, and we can see there is a muzzle flash visible in the video, but right now it looks pretty shitty. So what can we do about that? We add a blur node, set it to fast Gaussian and relative size, and about 20% like so. Shift D to copy this node, and another one with about like 2% maybe. 2% looks okay. So we have this muzzle flash with kind of an orange haze about it, and we can make the inside stronger or less strong by using the factor right here, because the lesser blurred one is the lower one. I press Shift D to duplicate that and add the original flare on top. And maybe reduce it like so to not have it too intense. And if I add that on top, of our video, we can see it kind of starts to look like a muzzle flash. And I see I could change the direction a little bit and move it a bit forward, and let's see how that looks. Could move it down a bit. And if this muzzle flash, if you want it in a different color in the material settings, if you change it to a blue color, you get this, the emission color. And if you might want to have it less intense, you can change the emission strength and it will automatically be a bit more transparent. That looks okay, but we don't get a lot more color. So one more thing that I really like to add is this, a simple RGB curves node. And if I add a contrast curve, and increase the red in the highlights, maybe decrease the blue, we can get it to look really orange and give it a nice color. So what's missing? First of all, right now we get this muzzle flash on every single frame. To correct that, frame 6 was the one where we wanted it visible, so we go over to density under the material settings, right click into the density field and insert a keyframe. One frame before that, we change it to 0 and press I to insert a keyframe, or right click, insert a keyframe, and the frame after we change it back to 0 and insert a keyframe. Now if we want to RAM preview this at the scene, we get the muzzle flash only on this one frame, but we're not really done yet. Because to improve the effect, the muzzle flash should also light up the environment. How do we do that? Well, first of all, we need a mask for the stuff where the environment will be lit up. We change to UV image editor and the viewer node, and down here change to masking mode. Add a new mask and control left clicking, we can add a mask right here. Alt and C will close the mask. And you can make the shape a bit more round by using those handles right here. And if you shift left click on one of these handles and drag it out, you get this green line that marks the feathering of the edge. So the tree will be lit up. Then we add another mask layer and make sure that his control left click, his face will be lit up. Alt C to make sure that it Alt C to close the mask again, and and with shift left clicking we can drag out the feathering edge. And at last I will also create a mask around his arms. And feather this out. if you can see it here, in those corners where the edge is kind of really tight, the feathering gets some problems sometimes, so you might have to drag it in. I don't really know any other way to fix this. But anyway, so our mask is created. We don't need the mask editor anymore, and press Shift A, input mask. That's how we get our mask. You can see it right here. And now if we use a color mix node and add this movie clip above itself and use the mask as the factor input, what do we get? Without the mask and with the mask, these areas will be brighter, and I can see it could have used more feathering, but instead of going back to the mask, I will just add another blur node to fix this. Fast Gaussian and relative, let's say 15% in every direction. Okay, 15 is way too much. Let's say 5. Okay, no more harsh edges. Now, of course, you only want this lighting effect to appear on the 6th frame where the muzzle flash will appear. So how do we do that? We add another color mix node. The upper half, change it to black, and the lower half to get the mask input. And now, if this is 1, the mask is visible. If this is 0, the mask will not be visible, and therefore there will be no light effect. So we go to frame 6, where it should be visible. Right-click, insert a keyframe. A frame before that, it should be invisible. Right-click, insert keyframe. And a frame after that, there should be no lighting again. So, no lighting effect. It will look like the muzzle flash lights up his face, and then it will disappear. Of course, we have to use the video right here with the lighting effect as the input into the final add node. And let's check back to the video editor, refresh sequencer, and get a RAM preview. And now you can see the muzzle flash lights up his face and his tree a little bit. And that's basically all. As I said in the beginning, you could add a smoke effect on top of that to make it even more realistic. And you could also, I guess, fake the blowback effect of the gun. But I didn't. Maybe I will do a tutorial on that later on. But that's it for today. I hope you learned something. And goodbye. Happy blending.